hours. So this is broadcast on James's YouTube and Twitch. So it's like we're having a party in his house without him here, which is awesome. Which is awesome.
I brought a broom and plastic bags, so we'll be able to clean up whatever we need to.
You planned on cleaning up. I did not. Oh, shoot. No, I just like to make a mess. Let him clean it up later.
Everyone likes to make a mess. This is one of the things I'm like, I don't know if heaven is going to work, because making messes is way more fun than cleaning them up. And who's going to clean up all the messes? If I'm having the best time of my life, I'm making messes.
Oh, that's so true. Oh, that's so true. Oh, man. I'm like super stoked about this one because there are a few CSS concepts that are like on the fringe for me. And I usually wait till it like gets full browser support before I'm like, okay, let me think about this. So I'm excited to hear about the future.
The future.
The future.
For some reason you said full brow, and I was like a full unibrows or I don't know. There's a joke there somewhere.
Well, and I have this. Oh, it's multiple. I have to remember to pause. Oh, man.
That's good stuff. I want this on board. That's cool.
You don't have access to this, do you?
No. I probably would be naughty with it anyway.
Oh, man. I do have, I'm also excited about this one. I'll go ahead and spoil it.
Dang, you say something spicy and just drop that one in there.
Oh, man. Like I said, people are either going to find it hilarious or obnoxious. Oh, man. Okay. So we have people. Christian in the chat. Christian is a long time listener. And then Todd Libby. Yes, James is
Todd
gone.
Libby.
Are you friends with Todd?
I do know Todd. I would call us friends.
Lobster.
What do you say, Todd?
Lobster. Is he melting? Are you melting in Arizona? My Morning Brew article the other day said that they have like a third of the people in the beds at the hospital are there from burns from falling on the ground. It's so hot that they've gotten burned by the ground.
And people say Seattle sucks. At least we're not cooking people.
I know, right? And then Jay. Good morning, Jay. He is a CSS lover.
Yeah, you're in the right spot.
Uh-huh.
It's not a programming language, though, so don't go telling anyone that.
Oh, I'd love to tell people that.
Doesn't have types, doesn't have functions. It's not like you write it and then a thing reads it and does the stuff, you know? It's not a language. It's not programming.
Bangladesh. Awesome. I don't know much about Bangladesh, even other than it's a place that I have never been. 119 in Phoenix. Sorry, what were we going to say?
Nuts. Oh, when you have it's not an interrobang, that's something else. But like when you do bang bang on the console, what was that called? I feel like I'm short a little bit of the name.
I like bang bang.
Yeah, bang bang. I think it's called bang bang, or because you do exclamation, or when you're telling it. Anyway, I think of Bangladesh, and I'm like, there's a joke in there with like,
funny,
pseudo Bangladesh.
Now the whole point, that's like a double negative, right? Bang bang.
In JavaScript, yeah, you do the 2 exclamation points. I mean, how many exclamation points? What's 3 mean?
That's a good question.
You know, if you put it important multiple times, does that make it more important?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know either. I wonder if it would parse. It would probably parse and be like, just throws them away. Good old CSS just throwing stuff away. It's like, what's this line of code? I don't know. I'll just tuck it in here and keep on going. Imagine if JavaScript did that. It was like, I don't know what this function is. I'm just going to keep running.
This is why I've been looking forward to this episode. JavaScript. Back pocket that. 68 in Germany. I'm assuming that's Fahrenheit because that would be boiling in Celsius.
Oh, did you see Huggy Wuggy up here? Does your family know who Huggy Wuggy is?
No. Educate me.
He's the most terrifying character in like a video game that's cute in a long time, and for some reason every grade schooler knows who he is and says, I'm not scared of Huggy Wuggy. And you're like, you're not? Have you actually played the game? It's terrifying. And they're like, yeah, I totally played it. It's fine. You're like all these little kids acting all super tough, even though they know that dude's one of the scariest people they've seen in a long time.
I have not heard of this. I'll have to check it out.
Oh, it's Poppy's Playtime is the video game,
Okay.
and it's a survival horror. You go into this toy factory, and you find these weird hands, these weird little hand things that allow you to
Uh-huh.
solve puzzles. Anyway, the toy factory, all the employees disappeared,
What?
and they don't know why. And it turns out
Ah,
that all the toys there that they'd been giving AI dolls and stuff,
uh.
right? All the toys there decided to play with the people the way that they'd been played with.
Oh, what a great story.
And it's
Uh,
dark and scary and
oh,
dingy, and
yeah.
you're just getting chased by these tall dolls. It's and yeah, there's no attacking or anything. You just run from this thing,
Oh,
and
funny.
it catches you, and its
Oh,
teeth are huge.
oh
It's
my.
real
I
scary.
I think, my son would love it. Now the big news with my daughters was that Hello Kitty released a new game this morning on the iPad,
Nice.
so they were excited about that. Oh, yeah, it's so funny. Huggy Wuggy.
Huggy Wuggy's got the cutest name. He's almost cute. You know, I gotta learn how to point at my stuff.
Oh,
He's almost cute. I
yeah.
like him because he's like on the verge of terrifying, but he's also he wraps around
Uh-huh.
your neck and can follow you, and people are like, "What is that wildly fanged cookie monster?"
Do you take it to conferences?
We've taken it to events like
Nice,
Comic Con or PAX or something like
nice.
that. It's like our nerdy little dude that comes with us.
Yes, that's awesome. Now, my friend Eric in the chat was saying that he's looking forward to making rocks with CSS.
Nice. Wait, someone did that. Hold on, I got a link.
We
They
go.
did really cool rock diamond things. Hold on, let's see if I can find this. This guy Modai makes all the coolest stuff.
I was gonna
Pause,
say,
pausing.
that's a big deal for you to say he makes cool stuff because I have been a huge fan of some of the demos you've been dropping.
Oh, thank you. I'm easily impressed by people. I like to like things. You know, some people like to
Uh-huh.
not like things.
Oh, yeah.
And I like to like things.
The, Jay also created some awesome
Oh,
stuff. I know he's
J
yeah,
Rocks.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sad he's not on my team anymore.
Yeah, I met him in London, and, he had my favorite talk that I went to. No offense to anyone else that was there speaking. But I did
I
not
saw
go
the rest of those
I
talks and they
did not
sucked.
I did not go to very many talks. I mostly socialized. So, anyways.
Yeah, the hallway track is where it's at.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not finding his thing very well. I really want to. It's really cool. He built these like because they used, of course, HD color spaces, um, and they're awesome. His name's Modai. Come on, show me his. Yeah, David Aaron. Here we go. Let's look at all your recent pens. I know it's in here. It was like he did all the shines and depth stuff with just a change in lightness, and then you can change the hue, and
Oh,
you get all these like beautiful rocks. So
that's
in
different
your
than what I'm
face, you wanted
thinking
some
of.
rocks. I'm gonna find it. Oh, I
Uh,
found it. Yes, generative gems.
I was gonna say that almost sounds like the, hologram. Like, have you seen the Pokemon hologram card
Yeah.
that somebody did? That one was awesome, and then somebody else did, like, the Northern Lights with, like, scrolling and effects. It was pretty cool.
Ooh, I like it. Whoa. I'm trying to log in so I can comment. Should I send this to you on Twitter? You can send it here. Incoming demo. Dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Unless I can screen share. Oh, I could screen share. Present. Yes. Don't show those tips again. Oh man, Google Chrome wants to record your screen. Uh-oh. Let's see if this will do it without a restart. Quit and reopen, you stinker. There's
Oh,
no way. Hold on, let's see. It
Eric
might do it anyway. Did it do it?
Eric
Did
was
it do it?
trying oh, there it is. Oh, I have to share it. There we go. What?
Yeah, look at those rocks. CSS rocks, y'all.
That's
Change the
awesome.
hue. And he's doing a cool thing where he rotates the hue a little bit so they look like they're kind of like, so right, this one's purplish, but he rotates the hue and gets, so yeah, look at these color combinations. These really sick rocks. CSS does rock. Where's your name? I'm going to say it. I'm going to say your name.
Oh,
I
Eric.
don't see it.
It's
Eric.
Gooseman. Yeah.
Gooseman.
You can't. Yeah, he doesn't have. I just know his first name's Eric. I'm probably was it violating some privacy by sharing his first name.
Hey, want to see a demo that, because this is all pre-show stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't stop making demos. It's just like all day. You'd think a lot of people are like, dang, Devrel looks so cool. All you do is make demos. And I'm like, dang it. No one in my job wants me to make demos, really. I do those just for me. Like this is all me. And so this is one I've been hacking on at night. Of course, it's a view transitions demo because well, I'm like addicted to those right now.
About.
Yeah, and I was like, I need to make a drag and drop list. And if I drop a node, I could just tell view transitions, hey, I changed the DOM. And it goes, wee, and figures it all out. Look at this. It figures it all out. And the video that's playing this, well, it's not a video. This one's an animated GIF, continues playing while it's going in there. So this is just regular JavaScript drag and drop that I have, and a list. It's a OLLIs. And it does all the work. And I just get to sit here and create a cool drag and drop experience.
That's awesome.
View transitions, everyone. If you haven't tried them yet, so also kicker on this one. So you talked about unibrowser support, right? We've got to make sure we have a unibrow.
I'm gonna make a sticker just for you. It's unibrowser.
Unibrowser. It's got to work across all the unibrowsers. This one is progressively enhanced. So I have like a little line of JavaScript that's like, hey, is view transitions here? If it is, then wrap this DOM modification in it. If it's not, just do the DOM modification. So if you're in Firefox or Safari, this is just a drag and drop experience. It just doesn't slide as you go to the new position. So they instantly go there. And well, if it has view transitions, I let the browser figure out the hard part.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, hard parts are hard and I don't want to do that. So sneaky peeky at the next, I'll be sharing this on Twitter.
Yeah, soon, share your code pin. Can you share in the chat?
Yeah. I tried to join the chat and then it wanted me to use my authenticator token. Hold on, let's see if I could just get in here. Choose an account for StreamYard. Yes. All right, let me get I got my little token thingy out. Here we go. Authenticator. Oh.
Is James coming? No, James is not coming. This is the best it's gonna get. As good as it's gonna get. We're throwing a party in his house. Oh man. So James is at that conference, and I know it's confusing, but that's what it's called. That conference.
That's what it's called.
So he's in Wisconsin, in the Dells. So yeah, but we have Adam. It's Argyle. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Argyle.
Yep. Yeah. And Adam works at Google and just does some awesome stuff with CSS. So I'm looking forward to it. And do you still record your own podcast?
Yep. We have a new season coming out. Oh, I guess I can kind of soft announce that right now. Yes, a new season of the CSS podcast is coming out.
Yeah, let's go live and we can talk about it. And Eric, I love Eric's comment. Is it an Amy takeover? Or is Amy just the main host?
No, it gets worse than that. Adam's replacing James.
You know,
just call me James the rest of the show. I'll just announce myself as James.
You know, it needs to be like, you know, like when you're watching TV back in the old days, they probably don't do it as much now, but they like swap somebody out after like the first season and they don't acknowledge it at all. Like that person is just the new person and everybody acts like it's normal. So
it's like The Witcher, you know? Oh no, it's the same Witcher, just a little different. Oh, yeah, it could be like Batman. I'm just the Batman. I'm the next Batman.
Perfect. Oh man. Ched is a fan of yours. So
Hi, Chad. I'm a fan
I'm
of you
guessing
too.
it's he. He said that he always follows your CSS announcements.
Oh, thanks.
Soap opera podcast hosts. That's what we are.
These are the CSSs of your life.
What gets me about soap operas is they like never look at each other. It's always like super dramatic. Okay, we'll go live. So James will now be played by Adam. Oh my goodness, this is going to be too much fun. Okay, let's see. How do we start this thing?
I kind of wish I'd forked opera now and called it soap.
Oh, that would have
Get
been
it?
smart. Yes.
Oh man, that's a dumb joke.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it. I like
Hey,
it.
where's the soundboard? It needs the laugh.
Got it. Hold on. Where is it?
I should fork opera and call it soap opera.
Hey, like keep it going. The only stinky thing is it doesn't like start back at the beginning. It like if I pause it, it'll just pick back up mid flip. Okay. I will officially start. So welcome to another episode of the Compressed FM podcast, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. Today we are joined by Adam Argyle. Super excited to have him on the show and talking about CSS.
CSS.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compress.
So this is fun, special trivia of Compressed FM. The clicking at the end is because when it was recorded in GarageBand and we exported it, we didn't turn off the metronome. So just left it in there. So anyways, hello, my name is Amy Dutton. I am a lead maintainer. Ooh, thank you for that. I'm a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team, and I have with me Adam Argyle from Google. Welcome, Adam.
What's up?
What is your official title?
Official title is Developer Relations Engineer. We are DREs. Dr. Dre's in the house.
Awesome. Oh, let's see. Do I have a good... I don't even know what would be a good sound effect to follow that up. So I created a soundboard for this episode. It's either going to be even more hilarious or even more obnoxious. We'll find out. We'll let the chat tell us. Oh man, I'm like, where do I start? I have so many things that I've been wanting to ask you about. Okay, so I think this will be a winner though. What if we start with view transitions?
Oh, yes.
I have seen so many awesome demos that you put out talking about view transitions. And usually I'll wait until we have more like full browser support with those things before I really dive in. But I would love to hear exactly what it is, how it works, like when could we start using it, that kind of thing.
Awesome. Okay. Well, there's two parts to it. There's a part that's shipped in stable Chrome already called the MPA. Like if you're, one of those kids that listen to that song. And that one allows you with JavaScript. Oh yeah, you're there.
Oh yeah, I'm there. I should have added that to the sound.
Everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would have had to pay royalties if I added that one to the soundboard.
Yeah, 4 seconds or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to come after you. Give us a penny. Mm-hmm. You played our song. Okay, so there's a JavaScript API that you can use for single-page applications, and then there's one that you can use for multi-page applications. I think I've swapped those when I just announced it. The one that's in stable is the JavaScript API. The multi-page one that'll do view transitions across full page loads is still behind a flag in Chrome Canary, but it operates in the same sort of mentality.
Okay, so and view transition.
The single page application version is so like anytime you want to just like click a button, like submit a form and then do some stuff, that's your JavaScript single page application version of view transitions, and that manifests as a function call called document.startViewTransition. It gives you a callback, you do some stuff in it, and when your stuff is done, it does all the work to sort of like animate the elements from where they were to somewhere new. It's really cool. And the multi-page version is kind of the same thing, except instead of you calling the function like document.startViewTransition, you click in a link is the hook it needs. It says they clicked a link. We'll go look at the current DOM and the next DOM, and we're going to do some morphing between if there's some shared names. And yeah, you're talking about like, can I use it now? Yes. The coolest part about this JavaScript one is you can check for it really easily. You're just like, hey, does document have a function called start view transition? If it does, wrap your DOM modifications in that function. And if it doesn't, do your DOM modifications as you normally would. So it's literally like one little fork in your code, a little fork in your code, and just like blink. I just imagine spaghetti, and then I put a fork on top, and I'm like, isn't that pretty? That's my code.
I was thinking of like appetizers. We have like little cocktails with the little tiny forks. You're like, ooh.
Very nice. Yeah, you got like some syrup, and you got a waffle and a little piece of chicken on a fork. And you just get to have your chicken and waffle all in one little bite.
That's a big bite on a tiny fork.
We'll make really tiny forks, so it's really tiny nugget bites. I don't know. Anyway, so there's like a decent overview. It's like view transitions. I guess I didn't explain really what they do. The browser will do essentially what is a flip animation for you, where it will find some element's new position and its old position, and then the element looks like it went from the old one to the new one, like it's floating across the screen, or maybe it's. I mean, you can kind of control it however you want, but it gives us that very fluid application feel where elements don't leave and then enter in awkward ways. They sort of stay persisted on screen, and like that's good for user feedback. It's just like when I took your beer from you and I moved it away from you, and you were like, I just watched my beer leave. And then I'm like, yeah, but imagine if I was like a magician, you'd be like, poof, you'd be like, I had a beer here and now it's gone. You're magic. Anyway, people like to see things move around. It's kind of the stupid joke there, but
so how does it follow that? Is it based on an ID tag?
It is a unique name, which is a lot like an ID, but it's called view transition name, and that part's kind of optional.
That part. Okay.
Yeah, there's kind of like lots of little parts to it here. I'm going to pull up a sweet little minimal demo here. Where's the one where I animate? Oh, that's a good demo right there. Yeah. Oh, so it's that one. This API is just too cool. I was going to pull up one where I animated grid positioning. Oh, yeah, here it is.
And so for the audio version, we'll include a link in the show notes.
Yes, it's pretty easy to explain, but it definitely helps seeing it. So let me know when you're seeing that.
Yep.
Okay, so it is not currently possible to animate something's alignment in Flex or Grid. You know, you're like, here's a grid, center, and it's in the center. You're like, yeah, okay, now animate to the top right. And it goes, no, I can't do that. These are discrete properties. Discrete properties just flip in the middle. I'm so sorry, says the browser. It's just so sad. You know, this seems so obvious. You're just like, just go from the center to the top right. It goes, I can't. You're like, but, and so what I'm doing here in this particular demo is every time I click, I'm assigning a new justify or align property. So it's going to either, go to the center, go to the top, or go to the bottom, or whatever. But before I do that, I call document.start view transition, and then I do my modification where I give it a new style, and then I'm done. And the browser goes, hey, it was in the top left. Now it's in the bottom right. Why don't I just transition it there? And you're like, that is exactly what I want. And so I'm animating a property that is not technically animatable because the browser gives me this new API to do it. So, and if you're on a browser that doesn't support view transitions, the element just snaps to the new location. That's not a bad fallback. It's almost like if you just kind of were lazy, and then you get this nice added bonus of animating that. And so you can animate display none this way. You just call document.start view transition. You say, hey, style is none. And then the element will scale down. The only hook that you got to give it is here's the name. This is the demo. It says view transition name box. Okay. Since I only have one box, that's unique enough. But you do need unique names so that the browser can identify shared elements.
Now, for people listening, this is not an HTML attribute. This is like an actual CSS property value.
Yep. It is a CSS property value. And so naming it, it will do the morphing. So if you don't want the morph, you don't even have to name it, and it will crossfade. Actually, here, let's just comment out the name. And now when I click around, it just crossfades between the positions because it doesn't know specifically a shared element. It just says, well, the document used to look like this, and now the document looks like this, and it just does a crossfade between them. But I give it a name, and it'll morph. A good idea is also to put this name here. Let's just nest it. At media prefers reduced motion, no preference. And now we apply that style view transition named box. And now they'll only have motion in this morphing animation if they don't have a preference for reduced motion. If they do, it's going to crossfade. So lots of layers of cool enhancement to do with this particular feature.
Now there's a question in the chat. Will this make DOM manipulation expensive?
It does not change expensive DOM manipulation's cost. What you can do that makes it struggle or get janky or have low performance is do it to a lot of elements. And I have demos where like I have like 100 emoji, and every time you click, they sort of like go into a random new location. And I was like, I'm gonna stress test it with emoji, and it does pretty good. But I did notice on my personal website where I have like 130 something cards and like a long list. It's like a huge scrollable list, and then you try to view transition an item inside of there where it's got all the cards. I wanted all the cards to shuffle. It's like, hey, 130 big cards are pretty hard to shuffle, because what it did is it took all 130, put them in the GPU, and my GPU's like, yeah, right. You think I can do 100? Anyway,
funny.
So there are ways to stress it out. You can overdo it. But in general, it should give you very good animations, because like if we see this one going across the screen like this, that's an animation on a transform. It's doing all the work. So this element is in flow, right? This is a grid layout with just a box getting changed around it. It has no idea that it's being animated. The browser's taking a screenshot. It's literally like taking a picture of where that box was before. I call start view transition. I do my work, and now it has an after state. And it looks at that shared element and creates a whole box for it, gives it the transform, and writes all the code necessary to translate that from where it was to where it is now. And it does it as performantly as possible, puts it on the compositor, the whole nine. I mean, it's pretty sweet.
That's awesome. Now, I think I heard you say this already, but just to confirm, can you add a transition to the click? I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Add a transition to the click. So like I'm clicking right now, which is causing a new style to be written. Here's the JavaScript down here.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's what they were.
Yeah, so document.body.add-event-listener click. If document.startView transition is available, then set random alignments. Well, if it's not available, then just set a new style. But if it is available, then start a new view transition, and in that callback, set the random alignments. And that's it. There's the little fork in the road to do this as progressive enhancement. And yeah, does that answer the question?
That's awesome.
I think
Jay was saying dissolve and fade. So what you saw earlier was when Adam removed the view transition name, but I'm sure you could also, if you really wanted to create a morph between a dissolve and a fade, you could, because what this allows you to do, if I understand correctly, is you can animate properties that you might not normally be able to animate. So it gives you superpowers you didn't have before.
It gives you superpowers. Yep. Like here's another good demo here. I'll just swap out.
Not superpowers like Huggy Wuggy.
He's got terrifying powers. All right, so here's a little demo where I take whatever styles you write inside of this little code box, and then I call document.start view transition before I put the styles in the page. Right, again, so the whole idea here is anytime you modify the page, if you call start view transition first and then do whatever you want, the browser will figure out the differences. And so here I've given you a code box or a little sandbox, and I'll say like margin block, and here let's say display none. Look at that. H1 just slid out. Well, it didn't slide out. It disappeared. And then my little box here. Okay, so here.
Animating a height auto is so
like
annoyingly
Auto,
frustrating.
yeah.
This is beautiful.
Let's do height 20 characters. Oh yeah, that's big. Let's go back to 10. Look at I'm animating height.
That's awesome.
And yeah, the display none kind of felt like a height animation, didn't it?
Like when you're trying to do a accordion or a toggle. That's so frustrating to. Like the easiest way that I found to animate height auto is with Framer Motion. But this is all within the browser. This is lovely.
It's all within the browser. You can do CSS Grid row height animations. It will go from 0 to 1 FR, for example, and it allows you to very much simulate a height animation. But yeah.
Chad was asking for clarity. So view transitions aren't necessarily for route changes, that it can be for any animation.
Yeah, that's kind of, there's two different kinds. So the route change is an automatic call to start view transition. It's like you don't have to tell the browser that you're about to change the page. Navigation is happening. The document is going to change. And so that's why that's the second part to this, that multi-page version. And it's coming later because it has a lot more complex things to solve versus the JavaScript one that we have now, which is pretty simple, right? You're like, I named a box. And then I told you I was about to change the box. I changed the box and the browser goes, I got told you were about to change. You did the change. I know the names of stuff. It's like really straightforward, but
That's
simultaneously like super powerful. But yes, the answer to that was yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with view transitions?
Let's see. The kind of limits of it are I haven't really found very many. Like you can animate replacing entire HTML. So like if you got like inner HTML and you just give it some new HTML, you can animate that. It's like anything that modifies the DOM is all of a sudden this animation moment for you, and it's just so much fun. And again, you can progressively enhance into it. It's good stuff. Yeah, give it a shot.
I think I saw your demo on Twitter that you did for a talk, where it was like all this stuff was animating. Do you know?
That might have been my talk at Smashing where I did that was on the multi-page one. Yeah, where I'm just like, hey, look at my slides. I'm just hitting next slide and they're just like, shoot, 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 morphing all over. I open sourced that kit. So there's an Astro kit now. It's called Morphul. Well, I guess I could share that since it's coming up. Morphul, which is a terrible kid show. Have you seen that kid show?
Mm-mm.
I do not like it.
You watch all the terrible stuff.
Hey.
I'm like, Hello Kitty has a new game. And you're like, listen to this other creepy thing.
Oh, Morphul it's cute. It's like a shark dog thing that just can say its own name, kind of like Scooby-Doo. So it's not terrible, like Huggy Wuggy scary. It's terrible. Like I'm just like, this show does not require much mental. Yeah. Anyway.
Do you watch Bluey? That's the extent.
Bluey is amazing.
Know, right?
The best cartoon that's come out in like 10 or 20 years. What that dad though makes all other dads look like we're not doing it right.
I know. Do you watch the new release, the new drop?
No.
Like 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks ago they dropped a whole bunch of new episodes. They are fantastic. So yeah. Oh, so good. Oh, be careful! I don't want to have to pay rights.
Bluey. Yeah.
So funny. Okay. Oh man, there's so many questions. I tell you what, I will go to the chat because Todd was asking about color related, contrast related things coming up in CSS. So my friend Todd is big on accessibility. And so I think that's kind of the angle that he's approaching some of the new properties that we're going to have available to us.
Yeah. And he's kind of asking about, we had a color contrast function, which got renamed to contrast color. So dumb. It's just like, really, we're all going to bicker over which order we say, whatever. Whatever. And so I think he's kind of asking about that. There's a couple parts to this question. The first one is like, what's new in contrast? There's a new algorithm called APCA. APCA. It aims to be the advanced perceptual color algorithm, a WCAG, contrast ratio 3.0 type of deal. It's got a lot of good ideas and it's getting worked on. It's not necessarily going to get stable anytime soon. But we'll see. Maybe it will. I don't know. But that's what's happening in sort of contrast, because there's a kind of known issue right now that everyone has with WCAG 2.0. It has a bias towards light themes. Dark themes tend to score poorly unnecessarily. It's just an algorithm that was made a long time ago, and we're now in a new space where we can work on the next version. So then there's this color contrast function that was in CSS. It's still in CSS. It's in color level 6 now, so it got bumped up. And it's even prototyped in Safari and in Chromium. You can go try color contrast. We didn't do the named to contrast color since the spec change. But anyway, the kind of high level of this is it's a little stalled at the moment. We're waiting for APCA to get solid, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen in there. So what I personally do right now with a lot of my color work and trying to hit target contrast ratios is I work inside of the OKLCH color space. And the L channel in that color space is fairly reliable for doing mathematical calculated colors that can give you a good theme that you can confidently know is going to be accessible. If there's a delta on the L channel, like like if your lightness of your background is 10%, so it's like a nice dark color, and then your lightness on your text is 70%, so you have 60% difference there in the L channel, you're almost always good to go for Wicked. And so you can kind of build under this assumption that there's like a delta in your lightness channel between your surface colors and your text colors, and you'll be kind of golden there. That's called
That's awesome.
L star. So if anyone's wondering what that technique is called, it's L star. It's like the lightness channel delta. They call it star, just like I don't know. Anyway, so you can work that way to do it. I don't know what's happening with the color contrast function. It got really complicated, and the accessibility of which algorithm to choose just made it all kind of screech to a halt. So I don't know. Probably nothing for a while. Sorry.
So the first time that I heard you on a podcast, I think you were on the Syntax podcast, and I should link to it. You're talking about how CSS gets in the browser, and I'll link to that episode so somebody doesn't have to listen to the whole rehash of that. But if you just want to give a quick summary of how that happens, I found that fascinating because I had no idea how they decide what features to implement or what that process looks like.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a fun episode, and it can happen a lot of different ways, but I'll try to give you a quick path, or at least here's a normal scenario that happens. Depending on who requests the feature, so you can just go on CSS Working Group Drafts, the GitHub repo, and just go request whatever you want. You'd be like, I did one a few years ago. I was like, I want motion blur, and they're like, good for you. Motion blur, nice, thumbs up. We're never gonna get to it. Thumbs up though. And then there's other ones that are really obvious, that can scoot right through and stuff like that. So another good example of one that we need is linear gradients can only specify left and right, and they can't say inline and block. So it'd be nice to have logical directionality inside of our gradients. And so someone goes and proposes that, and they say, this is what I need. Here's my use cases. And then simultaneously they can propose syntax to solve it if they want. And so that's how things start. Things start very loose, just like it could be scratched on a napkin type of deal. And you plant the seed of the idea. And that seed, if it has legs, if it seems kind of viable, there's lots of good use cases, it'll get good discussion happening inside of GitHub. From there, it gets presented to the CSS working group by somebody. Usually it's the person that came up with the idea, but it doesn't have to be. And they go, hey, there's this idea. Here's the use cases. What do we all think about this? And there can be anywhere from 20 to 50 people on that call. And these are people from all around the world of many different kinds. There's, of course, there's Google and Mozilla and Apple there, but there's invited experts that focus on pub readers, that focus on captioning systems and all sorts of stuff. There's all these different specialties that all are in this room that are kind of helping us all make sure that what we're coming up with is not going to break something else, and is and it might reach into their use cases, and they'll have good ideas there. So it kind of gets hashed out there. And initially, if it's good, people will be like, all right, we like this enough that someone should spec write it. And if it's not good enough, they might push back and be like, hey, we liked the idea, but it seems a little undercooked. That's fun to say. I should say that more often. Undercooked. Anyway,
that's a video game.
Undercooked. That's a very good video game. If you want to yell at your spouse too, it just depends on how good you are at stress. If you're good at stress, you'll have, I play this game and I'm like, what? It's just chill. We're just chefs, chill out. But you were in my way and I need to deliver a burger. Anyway, okay, so it can go back. It can get pushed back and be like, it's undercooked. Go write an explainer. So maybe you've seen an explainer before where you're like, hey, I see this thing. It's not a spec yet, but it's a well thought out new feature for the web. And those come in the form of explainers. And the explainers outline the use cases, maybe go much deeper into the demos, maybe even polyfilling things with JavaScript, stuff like that. It comes back to the working group. They talk about it again. They go, oh, this is much more refined. This seems like something we can build. And then they start putting it into the spec. Someone gets assigned to put it into the spec. So then it starts going into the spec under a very draft-like type of spec. I think they're even called drafts. And anyway, so things go into a spec. They have multiple levels of approval that they get through. Engineers will start looking at the instructions that are in there. they'll go build a prototype based on what they read in there. And then that there's iteration that happens there. The engineer's like, you missed a spot. And then the spec writer's like, oh yeah, well, you missed a spot. And then everyone eventually gets happy with what's going on. And once one browser has it behind a flag, we're waiting for a second one behind a flag. Then you take that feature, which looks pretty good everywhere. It's got tests probably at this point, which are web platform tests. And then you submit it to Tag Review, which is another community. It's another group that looks at stuff and makes sure that it's holistically healthy for the web. And they need to give you a thumbs up. If you ship without their thumbs up, it's bad. And so, yeah, there's all these checks, all these things that happen. Lots of different group members come together. Eventually, it gets marked as shipping for stable. And that's what you'll see, like, oh, this is shipping and stable in 116. It means all these different things have happened. And they've all rolled up into this moment where everybody feels good enough about it that they can ship it. And they'll give it a tagged browser. That code gets merged. That build gets made on that day. And that release goes out to the world type of deal.
So what is the length of that process looks like? Like, are you talking about years, weeks?
It depends on the feature. Like if it's like a single CSS feature, here's a good example of one that skated right on through. Have you used linear easing yet? The linear easing function?
Well, is it? I don't think so. Are you talking about like just normal transition properties? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
I could see that being confusing. It's not the keyword linear.
Okay.
It's wherever you would put ease in or ease out, and you can specify cubic Bezier. This is an alternative to cubic Bezier. So cubic Bezier takes 4 numbers, they're not integers, but anyway, whatever, 4 floats. And what linear does is it takes any number of floats in there. And it has this unique idea that was proposed by Jake Archibald, was just started out as a GitHub issue and got turned into a spec pretty quickly because it was kind of like this narrow focus. It's like, we just want to give people another way to articulate an easing curve. Here's a cool way to do it. Here's why it's easy. Here's the implementation details. And all of a sudden, like in a couple of weeks after it got proposed to the CSS working group and they said this looks good, the Firefox browser had it like prototyped.
Nice.
Because they were listening and they were like, oh, we saw that proposal by Jake. Oh, that's easy code to write. And so they just went into their dungeon, right, and wrote a bunch of the code that it took to get that done and said, hey, look, we have a prototype. And that one skated through pretty quick. Sometimes the prototype gets finished before the spec, which is interesting. But you can't ship to your stable browser until it's past tag. And it should have been prototyped in at least 2 browsers before it ships, but that's not a hard requirement.
Oh, interesting.
It's just optimal.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. We are going to jump around a little bit. So my apologies that this is not fluid at all. Not like that view transition.
What's
not
that
like
song,
that view
Jump
transition.
It's not going to be smooth.
No, it's not. This will be like not supported. Okay, so Eric was asking, since you work at Google, what does a Devrel interview look like? Do they have whiteboard coding challenges and a conference stage instead?
Excellent question. Yeah, we do kind of do mini versions of those. So there are coding challenges. They're like a whiteboard. Since everything's remote now, we don't really whiteboard as much anymore. I whiteboarded in my interviews, but I feel like that might have been an end of an era around then. So we do coding in a Google Doc, and the Google syntax highlighting. We're not looking for
no prettier
precision. No prettier, no auto formatting, none of that stuff. It's toast. And so you get in this thing, and it's us having an opportunity to see how you think. And do you generally know how to get something done? Like, it's not important to us that you wrote a for each loop that typed every parameter that then had appropriate guards that was all type safe. And we don't care. We want to sit down and be like, because that's stuff that you can figure out later on your own time. We want to know, if I gave you a task, can you sit down and do it? So sometimes I'll give people like a data structure or something, and I'll be like, find this particular element in the data structure. Or one of the ones I like to do for the CSS Devrel is recreate parts of query selector. So it's like, hey, find all the paragraphs on the page. Find all the paragraphs that are child of a div. Find all the paragraphs that child of a div, child of a section, right? And yeah, I'm not looking for you to like give me the answer really quickly and perfectly. It's more like, hey, let's just talk it out. What DOM functions are you going to call? How do you like to do loops? Are you going to use a for each? Are you going to do functional programming versus what are the for of loop? So those are just like fun conversations we'll have in there. There is a presentation also. So yeah, you do need to show us that you can present and create a talk. It's not huge. It's not like we're going to put you on a Google I/O stage or anything like that, but you can get a decent sense about somebody's ability to present through a little video chat like this. And so, yes, they hit play. There's 4 or 5 of us watching and taking notes, or whatever. And that is a terrifying. That's a terrifying talk to give. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's some of it. There's other pieces too, but yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet. I have a few other things. Let me see how we're doing on time. Okay. Again, we're just jumping around. Yeah, as Eric said, throw in virtual popcorn. So this, I'm embarrassed to admit I've not used this tag because I love CSS and this tag has been around for a while and I haven't used it yet. So but you can do, and I'm like building anticipation, right?
Yes.
You can do so much with this tag, and I still haven't used it yet. It's the has tag.
Oh, yes.
That was the appropriate response. Do you want to talk through that tag? And some of the benefits that you get with it.
Okay. There's, I'm going to try to cover 3 superpowers, even though this thing does more than that. One of them is has can tie into any of the pseudo classes that we have in CSS. So hover, invalid. Oh, great. I'm going to blank on all these different pseudo classes that we have. Active, focus.
Okay. Hover. Did you do that one?
I did that one, but that's cool.
Before and after aren't really sorry. I'll just add. I'll repeat what you're saying.
Oh, no worries. I was like, yeah, let's jam on it. Anyway, all of those different things that you have. So all the form states.
Do those count as, because those are kind of like different. It's not like
those
really
are elements. Yeah, pseudo elements. Like and we're looking for pseudo classes.
Oh,
yeah. So the single column versus the double colon. I think this little stuff we have to remember. Yeah. No worries. I do this stuff too. I definitely don't ever sit down and I'm like perfectly coding. But anyway, all these pseudo classes become something that you can query any of your children for. So like if you have a form, if any of your children are invalid, you can say form : has invalid. And then you can make the form have a red label somewhere. You can make a field set do that. So a parent element can be hyper aware of the activities happening inside of its children based on these pseudo classes. So that's superpower number 1. The other part of that too is like that state that's in that input or that state that's on that button can affect something anywhere else on the page. It's really cool. So just think about feature number 1 I'm mentioning is all pseudo classes have just become superpowered in that they can affect more than just the thing that they're currently affecting. Other elements on the page can react and adapt to the pseudo state that's happening on something. That's cool thing number 1. Cool thing number 2 is a parent can know what kind of children it has. So like if you've got a card, let's say you have 3 cards, they're all product cards, but the second one has like a missing product card, or maybe it's just an announcement. The other 2 do have images. You can say dot card : has image. And you can change the grid layout, change the flex layout, change the size of typography. You can change the card because it doesn't have an image. And then you can, if it does have an image, give it the, good old big image with the title and the price on it. So you can adapt to the types of content that you have. And the third superpower that's really rad is that you can combine this with quantity queries and you can adapt to the amount of things that you have. So like a good example was a nav bar at the top. If it's only got 2 links in it, put the logo in the center and put the 2 links on the right. And then the search bar or something on the other side. If you have 5 links, though, put all the links in the center and put the logo on the right with the search bar next to it. You can have one nav bar that JavaScript and your templating system doesn't care. It just renders out the links and renders out the logo and renders out the search icon, right? It's a very dumb template. It's awesome. And CSS can go in here and make this nav bar hyper intelligent about the types and number of elements it needs to show. So this one nav bar, like if you're in Wix or whatever, this means you could just add links, bing, 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 and watch the nav bar change to different ways that's appropriate for that number of links. It's super sick. So : has Those are just a few of its superpowers. You could build games with it. I mean, it's really
That's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. I think some of the coolest use cases I've seen is like where we mentioned Jay earlier. He did a tic-tac-toe.
Oh
That,
yeah.
which, I mean, just like the idea of being able to manage state within CSS is ridiculous to me.
Yep, that's all checkboxes. Just checking the
so
checked
cool.
state with has.
So
Super cool.
Okay, so this is going to be our theme, is just popping around.
Nice.
So all these things are going to be tied together. So
there's too many. Yeah, it's all good.
I know, right? And I've just had this like mental list in my head of things that I wanted to talk to you about. So for everybody listening, the first time I actually got to talk to Adam, we were on a Twitter space together, and something came up about a 12-column grid. And Adam was like, I don't think, that's not relevant anymore. So I was like, I will fight you. And so I hope he knew that I was just joking. Like, I'm not gonna like pull out my boxing gloves. But I thought this would be a fun point to talk about. Like, is the 12-column grid relevant or not? Because I'm been in tech long enough that I remember like the 960 grid system where it's like, hey, your website should be 960 pixels wide and you're going to have 12 columns. I remember Susie, I loved that grid system where, just we're doing everything with floats, but it's a 12-column grid system.
Shout out to Miriam.
I know I need to have her on here. She's one of my favorites.
Yes, you do. What a stellar individual.
I know. Yes, so true. And talking about like contributions to the CSS community right there.
For sure.
I'll include she's not active on Twitter. She's moved on to better things, but I'll include a link for people that want to find her work. But anyways, yeah, let's battle it out.
Let's battle it out. I was just queuing this up. Layouts, 12 columns. Wait. Finish. It has a stabby sound, and I can't get it to finish.
Is that based on your movement? So, okay.
That's a classic.
Waving
just like
his phone around.
Yeah, just waving my phone. It's like a sword. My kids love that. I love that one. I mean, I've had that one since like the first iPhone and Android. It was like, wave your phone for a sword. I'm like, I'm here for this. I was like, I don't have a soundboard, but I do have a sword in my pocket. I haven't
even been using my soundboard.
12-column grid. I think it's still a healthy thing to like overlay as a soft mental model on the macro layout. Like if you want to go into Figma and say new canvas, and and then you pick your canvas 1980 by 1280 or whatever, or 1920 by 1280, and then you put a 12-column grid on there, and then you sort of like roughly use that as you go, just to stay within some of those guidelines. I think that's totally fine. I don't see that as much anymore. I see more like grids getting built that are a little bit more like fluid in terms of like, side rails, named areas for heroes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that 12-column grid idea, especially when it came into like Bootstrap and Foundation and Suzy and stuff like that, it just for me started to break down. Whenever I would get into scenarios where it was like, I need 5 items here, and you're like, 5. It doesn't really work very good inside of 12. You're like, okay, we got to change our content to fit my grid. And you're like, you can't do that to people. And it seemed like it came from typography. And so it came from a more traditional paper and print style layout, which was a lot of early web was the size of a piece of paper, but we're way beyond that now. And what does your 12-column grid do when it's on mobile? You're like, must span all 12. You're like, that just feels really dumb. So I think it had a lot of good intent. It taught us a lot of good lessons. It can still be a strong way to think about dividing something up. But I find it kind of frustrating if I try to really stick to it too much. And then I'm assuming that's how everybody else felt, because it's sort of trickled down and it's not as popular. But yeah, what are your favorite parts about it? And how are you using it today still?
That's a good question. So I do use it on a macro level, what you're talking about from a soft standpoint, but there are parts that make it difficult. So for example, if I had a sidebar that I'm like, oh, this will be 1/4 of my screen, and then you have your typography inside of it, it's like, well, you're not going to butt that straight up against the edge of the grid. You need some padding and some spacing. And so like when you start talking about places where that starts to break down a little bit, it's not like I want to shift that over a column. because then you're just going to have this really fat sidebar that you don't necessarily need. So I think, for me, I'm still working off of more of maybe a 4-pixel grid. And I think that makes sense when you're talking about using rims, because one rim is equal to 16 pixels. And so then if I'm working off of a 4-pixel grid and just shifting everything within that, there's still some stability and consistency within the design. And I think that's probably the main thing that I would want to communicate to people in terms of design is consistency is probably the easiest maybe thing to accomplish when you're trying to think about design principles is, and people notice that. And it also lends itself to cleaner code. When you're being consistent with your font sizes, you're being consistent with your dimensions and things like that. It's less code and it's more consistent. And then that means that things start to line up on the page. So you're not going to have, say, oh, I want this to be at like 1440 at the top, and then I'm going to come down to a really narrow page. That makes it difficult when you're having to go way over to the far top left to access your menu, but then all of your content and where you're focusing visually is in the center. So if you can be more consistent with those things, your design is going to feel a lot tighter.
100%. Yeah, I mean, you're not only enhancing like the development side of this with some sort of commonality in units, the user is going to appreciate the consistency. They're going to notice that there's not a bunch of wild choices everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think for me, I am a big fan of Tailwind. I think I can. Is that fair? I don't know where you stand on Tailwind. Maybe that's another.
Why would I hate something?
Topic.
That's like,
I know, right?
I don't hate stuff.
Well, and I think I appreciate that. We've had I'll include a link in the notes, but my friend, oh goodness, of course I call him my friend and then I blank on his name. I think his name's Aaron. He was on, he works for Yum, which is like the largest restaurant group in the United States. And he promotes himself as the happiest developer. But it's like that same thing. Like, why choose to be mad? Why choose to be hateful on things? Like, everybody has something to bring to the table, and rising tide, rises all boats, or however the phrase goes. But with Tailwind, one thing that I appreciate that's brought to my design work is vertical rhythm, which is something that admittedly I've not been great at before Tailwind. So vertical rhythm is when you think about the vertical space on the page. It's sometimes a lot easier to think about horizontal space, but you also want to make sure that things are spaced out well vertically. And so with Tailwind, since you're working within that 4-pixel grid, that rim system, that does help snap things into place so that you have a stronger vertical rhythm as well as horizontal rhythm. Do you want me to share your screen?
Awesome. It's so funny you said vertical rhythm. I had already pulled up my demo on vertical rhythm as you were talking. I was like, because you're mentioning so many. Well, you were doing so good. And the way that you were talking about things lining up and the spacing consistency and all that sort of, and then you even literally said vertical rhythm like 5 seconds after I pulled up my demo.
Great mind.
It's like we've got vertical rhythm happening in here. Look at how the links all line up. But this is doing it with the line height unit. So instead of working in a pixel grid or just a sort of like spacing system, this is a spacing system that also plays into the entirety of the layout. So it goes from the macro alignment all the way down to the micro. So look at down here, we have a link.
Nice.
And the bottom of a sidebar aligning to the last line of a paragraph.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful. This is like the type of typographic perfection that designers were going for in design and stuff like that. And the way that this is achieved is all line heights are given this root line height unit. And so I can go change it from the base and watch the entire thing scale up and down. And then the web is even super cool that like you can do right to left, everything stays aligned, and you can do a vertical layout like in traditional Japanese and go right to left and get alignment in the same way. So it's not vertical alignment. It's not vertical rhythm on the web. We have logical rhythm. And I had a lot of fun building this demo where everything lines up on a baseline throughout the entire design, all by using this one new cool unit. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I heard you talk about, you have a soft podcast announcement.
I do. The CSS podcast is returning for season 4, where we're going to be answering your burning questions. So instead of like going through the specs and talking about very specific aspects of CSS.
Wait for it. Where'd it go? I had a gasp. Maybe what? Oh, here. Wow.
We're going to be talking all of like your questions or just things that are troublesome, like why isn't my margin here? Why isn't Z-index working? Why do I have a scroll bar?
Mm.
We're going to be talking about these common problems and things that cause them, ways to solve them, and tools to help you discover it. So watch out for that next season. It's good.
Oh, that's funny. Had a good use case for it. Okay, that is exciting because I found that there's just a handful of things that throw people off with CSS. Like when you start talking about position being relative to the parent, to me that's like the number one or one of the number one gotchas.
Yep.
It's like, why is it not behaving?
I think that was our first one. Was you're
Really?
trying to like float a tag on a card, and you're like, oh, I'll just put position absolute on, and then it go poofs somewhere else, and you're like,
where'd it go?
that's not where I wanted you. Yeah.
That's fun. Sweet. Are there any things that, I mean, I could go on about things, but I know we're getting close on time and I want to get picks and plugs in there because I know you've got a good pick and plug. I don't know what it is, but I know it's going to be good. So is there anything else that you want to cover?
Oh, it's so tough. There's so many cool things.
I was like, I feel like you have so much knowledge. You need like 5 hours.
Need 5 hours. Scroll-driven animations are really cool. That's another one that you can progressively enhance. So, right, you don't need a scroll-driven animation on a page. You can spice it up, though. Sprinkle it on if the browser supports it. And that's shipping in stable Chrome in a couple weeks. And the API is super cool. Of course, I've got a bunch of demos, but my colleague Bramus has a really sweet website, scroll-drivenanimations.style. There is way too much. The color stuff is super rad. I love that, like, where the web we were is a VHS and the web we are now is a DVD. And so it's like, what colors are you using? Are you still using hex codes? That's why your site looks like a VHS. You got to upgrade that color function you're calling. Anyway, so yes, there are way too many things. We can't get into all of them. But I'm glad we covered view transitions and some other things. It's just cool stuff.
I am grabbing the link to that scroll-driven animations. There you go.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thanks, James.
I know, right? Well, what's funny is
I shared that. That was me.
I can send out messages and people are like, oh, James is here. And I'm like, no. It's like his camera watching us.
Good thing you're not evil because you could totally...
I know I could totally say some things. Where is my evil
Wait, you
laugh?
had an evil laugh also.
I
know.
I had to look for it. Okay. Awesome. So I'm like, I won't open another. James, I see your question. I'll save it for the after show so we don't go down a rabbit hole. For the next section of the podcast, we'll do our picks and plugs where we pick something that we like and we plug something generally that we worked on or where you can find us. So Adam, do you have any picks and plugs for us this week?
Yes. My pick is the One Wheel. It's summertime and you want to snowboard in the summer and just cruise wherever you want from trail to whatever. It's available for you. It's really, really fun. They call it floating for a reason. You definitely, when you get a hang of it, feels like you're floating. And those are some of my most joyful days. And that's what I'll be doing later today. I'll be taking my kids to the beach and I'll put them on an electric skateboard that I'll drive. And then I'll be riding my One Wheel next to them. And we're just going to go cruise the beach, get some shaved ice. You know, that'd be good stuff.
Wonderful.
For plugs, yes.
We can edit this section out, but my friend Brad was going to be on the show to fill in for James, and it's his birthday today, so he had to miss. He had a family birthday breakfast. And I was like, but he was like, I want to talk to Adam about his One Wheel. He was like so excited, and then he didn't come. So I'm glad. I'm so glad you shared that. I'm so glad you shared that.
I'm glad. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, your other One Wheel friends. I mean, it's a good ride. You all meet up and you just cruise around. It's super cool.
That's awesome. And then your plug.
Plugs, the CSS podcast. Go check it out. It's on all the spots, just like y'all's show, wherever you want to listen to it. And we go over kind of the computer science side of CSS. We're still kind of fun and silly, but it's pretty serious. And we dig into the types and the functions and all the different aspects of CSS. It's guaranteed you're going to learn something, because basically as soon as any one of those episodes are done, I forget everything that I just said. And so I have to go listen to them too. And I'll be like, I said that? I just learned it though. How did I learn from myself?
Awesome.
And enjoy it. It's a pretty good show if you like CSS.
Awesome. I am going to pick a new podcast that I've started listening to as well. So we'll have all the podcasts this week, called Acquired. And I think this is this is the right link. Have you heard of this one?
No, it sounds intriguing though.
So the byline for this story, or this podcast, is every company has a story. And so they interview all these big name companies and talk about their history and just stuff that they've gone through. So recently I've listened to the interview with Spotify, which was fascinating because it starts talking about streaming music before streaming music was a thing, and kind of like this Apple war where Steve was like, people want to own their music and trying to break into the industry. And I mean, now it is the number one way that music is delivered to really the world. So that was a really interesting interview. And then I've also been listening to the interview with the Uber CEO. And that one's interesting too, because, we're quick to forget about companies' history, but Uber had like this really weird beginning because they had all this drama. They were in the news, their CEO got kicked out, and then they ended up hiring this guy. So he talks a little bit about the transition. He talks about the marketing and how the market, not the marketing, but the market and how they position, or how they price rides. That was really interesting. And it's all about like the economics of supply and demand, things that you don't really think about. So I've really enjoyed this podcast, and I shared a link in the chat, and we'll share a link in the show notes as well. And then for my plug, I'm going to plug the Learn, Build, Teach Discord server. So this is a server that James runs. And if you want to just talk to other people that love code and development and things like that, I encourage you to check it out. You can go to learnbuildteach.com and it will redirect you. Cool. Well, Adam, we appreciate you being on the show this week, and appreciate you taking the time. And for now, that's all we got.
Awesome. It was so nice being here. I was wondering if anyone's pick has been a plug, because that would just be funny.
Oh, well, and it's like they get interchangeable. It's like, I'm going to plug myself and then I'll pick something random, or, whatever.
Oh, no, I'm like literally a plug. Like, hey, I plugged my kid's
like a
bathtub with this. Yeah.
Like a smart plug.
A smart plug.
Oh, that's awesome.
My pick is a plug. My plug is a pick.
What would you pick? Like a nose picker. What else would you pick? What else? I'm trying to think of other things you pick. Fruit, vegetables.
Nice.
No.
I like them.
Hilarious. Okay, so this is like our the longest goodbye. Do you have a minute? I don't want to know where it.
No, you go. No, you go. No, you go. Yeah, I have a minute. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask this question because it's a little spicy one. This was in the chat. So, learning the best framework. I think I'll give my go, and then I'll kind of let you respond. So James is asking, as someone who's learning, what is the best framework? What is everyone's feelings about Tailwind? So I don't really feel like there's a best framework. We're all trying to like add things and develop things, and I think we're constantly pushing each other to be better. The JavaScript, I also think JavaScript, I know we spent a lot of time talking today about CSS, but in the JavaScript world, we've swung from SPAs are awesome, do everything in the client and the browser, and now everything's going server side because we want to send less JavaScript to the browser, and I'm sure it'll swing back at different points. But it's just part of it, and I think that if you're trying to learn, just pick one. Don't worry about picking the wrong one or the one that's not going to take you the furthest, because the thing is, once you understand a general framework, then you're able to apply a lot of those concepts. It becomes a lot easier to pick up other things. For CSS and Tailwind specifically, since you did ask about that, I'm a huge fan of Tailwind, but I would also encourage you to learn CSS first if you can, because what that does is it makes learning Tailwind easier and you understand the underlying principles. So when Tailwind's not working, it's probably a CSS thing. And so a lot of times the reason that people, at least my theory, that people lean on Tailwind so heavily is that specificity can sometimes be hard, and Tailwind takes care of a lot of the specificity or the naming issues that people run into. But if you understand the CSS, then you're not going to run into that as a problem either way. My 2 cents.
Lovely. You do so good answering these like intense questions. Your expertise shows so often.
Thank you. After I butchered after and before as pseudo elements. Not really.
All good. I'm willing to just step right over that one and keep moving forward. No biggie. I have someone sawing outside of my window.
We're done
here.
Recording.
Can you hear it? Oh, nice.
A little bit, but it's fine. It's fine. We're done.
So my advice here is, so Tailwind is very cool. It has lots of great features. One of its best features, so Amy mentioned naming things. So instead of naming things on yourself, you can go learn their naming. So they've done the naming, and you have to go learn a micro syntax. And so maybe that's fun for you, or maybe it's not. Anyway, that's the part of the naming you're still going to have to learn. But one of its biggest superpowers is the fact that it's a style sheet that you can count on that never grows. So like when Tailwind first came out, you would just get one style sheet and just build a million different experiences off of it. The style sheet would never grow, it never change. That was a really cool feature of it. These days, it's a little bit more complicated in getting it set up. You have to, because it builds that style sheet for you as you write the micro syntax. So you still get a lot of the same benefits, but it does have a little bit more extra setup. So just be aware that there's, it can be a little complicated getting the tooling set up, but it has that's a cool feature either way. And this is a feature of object-oriented styles, is where you make classes that do stuff, and that way you can start to style in your HTML. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of Tailwind too, is that people like to style from their template, and their templates in their JavaScript, and they like being in their JavaScript. So if you like, and you're already in your JavaScript a lot, you'll probably like the ability to author your styles right there in the template, and you can move them around. Your styles port really nicely with Tailwind. You can just copy a whole set of classes, paste them on another template, and it looks the same. That's pretty cool. That being said, CSS can do all the same stuff. So yeah, I would just say be excited about whatever you're doing. If what you're doing isn't fun, then just go do something else. If the framework isn't clicking with you, pick another framework. And even when one of the frameworks does finally click for you, don't put your flag on it like it's the only framework you're ever going to know and love for the rest of your life. It's not a reflection on who you are. This isn't your sports team that you like to watch. Tailwind is not a jersey that you have to wear now. React is not a jersey. These things, they're not a part of you. You are a developer, and these are just tools. It's just like saying the handyman is his hammer. He is not his hammer. He is not the brand of his hammer. He is a handyman. So just be excited, just have fun, follow all of your weird little intuitions, because at the end of the day, kind of like what Amy's saying, is you just gotta make stuff, and every time you make something, you're going to be a little bit better. You're going to learn more about what the tool did good and what the tool did bad. There are no tools that only give you good. I will repeat that. There is not a single framework or a tool that automatically makes you good. Just like, I'm going to get ranted a little bit here, but just like a guitar, a lot of people are like, I want to learn guitar. So they go buy the best guitar. This is like choosing the best framework and expecting it to make you good somehow right away. It don't. The whole part of this is it's a tool. This is also another thing I really get fired up about, is people put too much power on the tools that they use to build something, and they don't give enough credit to the people that used the tool. The tool just sits on the bench and doesn't do crap. You swung the hammer. You built a thing out of it. Like, it's not the tool. Like a successful app or business is not because of the engine that they chose. React or Tailwind are not why anything is successful. That has nothing to do with it. It's the same way you get in a car, the brand of the engine and that doesn't matter. You're going to get in the car, and as a user of a car, it's all gone to you. The concept of all the engineering. You sit in it, and how's the steering wheel feel? Does it shift nice? Is it comfortable to sit in? If you sat in a car that was all metal and had no cushy seats and the steering wheel was sticky, like, you're immediately like, this could have the best engine in the entire world, built on the most fantastic technology in the world, and I won't drive it. All of this stuff is just a means to an end. You got to figure out what parts make you excited, and maybe it's working on the engine, but maybe it's working on the interior. Maybe it's painting the car. Maybe it's destroying the car, testing and stuff like that. if you're still new, and usually these questions are from new people in my experience, which is how do I get good really fast? I want to be the best now. This is just like in paintball. People are like, I want to get good at paintball. I'll go buy the nicest paintball gun, and surely that will make me shoot better. And it does not. You still are a junior, and you still will get shot by other people with cheaper guns than you, because they just know how to play it. Same thing with the guitar, right? You can go buy the nicest guitar. It doesn't make you good. You can go get the nicest tools. Next.js with Tailwind. Oh, surely this will make me good. No. In fact, it might actually make you worse, because it could be more complicated than you know how to use. So even though it's simplifying a ton of stuff, you don't know what it's simplifying. So therefore, you don't know what it's getting. Anyway, there's unfortunately no easy routes except the one, which is follow what you like to do. Follow that passion, follow what is keeping you excited. And as soon as something gets boring, I mean, let your work be work. Work is not always supposed to be fun, but find the things that are fun for you and chase them down and do it forever. I think that's what's cool about the web. We have infinite channels to go down. None of them are better than the others. They're all just ways to be a crafter. And so, I don't know.
I absolutely love everything that you said. I was like, I feel weird tacking something on because I was like, perfect. But I think if I did tack something on, it would just say the benefit too of doing something that you love is you're going to stick with it longer. If you start using a tool that you hate, and you're going to hate it, and you're going to hate your life, you're going to hate building, and you're just going to give up because it's not fun. And so if you find something that you enjoy doing, it's easier to stick with and it's more enjoyable.
Yep.
You also had a +1. I mean, you're getting claps here. Let's claps in the chat. But also Josh, another good friend, he was just saying that you should write a blog post about this if you don't have one already. So just very well said.
I could, yeah. It's mostly just rants. And yeah, if we ever sit and have
a rant.
Yeah, clink a beer with me and you'll get a rant of some kind.
You made my beer disappear earlier in the episode.
Yeah, I'm not giving it back either. That's mine now.
Awesome. Okay, well, everybody, thanks for sticking around in the chat. This was a super enjoyable episode, as I knew it would be, and we will catch you next week. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast.